Let's talk about coronavirus now, Thomas. Here in Ghana, there's been a significant reduction in our active cases, but we're also not testing as much. What is the latest in Germany regarding numbers and testing?
So not only in Germany, but also in other European countries, what we're seeing is an increase in the number of coronavirus cases, and a very significant increase in the number of coronavirus cases as well. So Germany, for example, has been registering over 1,000 new cases a day. You may think that that's not much, and it is, in fact, lower than other regions in the world or than other countries in the world, for example, the United States. But at the same time, for Germany, this 1,000 plus new cases every day is very significant. In fact, it's the highest number since May. And this echoes what is also happening in other parts of the continent. France, for example, Spain, the Netherlands, also registering higher numbers of coronavirus cases. And that's why some people are already discussing here the fact that this could be a second wave of coronavirus in Europe. What Germany has done in particular is try and focus on the three areas of concern. One, you mentioned it already in your introduction, the fact that holiday makers are returning to the country from other destinations and bringing the virus with them. In fact, around 39% of infections last week here in Germany were brought from abroad. That's one area of concern. The second area of concern is local infections, in particular after people might be partying or celebrating too much. The good weather here in Germany does not help necessarily to keep those social distances. And the third element is that more and more younger people seem to be getting infected. In fact, the average age of infections in Germany last week was 32, and just to give you a comparison, over Easter a few months ago that was 52. So you can clearly see that more and more younger people are getting infected with the coronavirus.
Well, Thomas, let's talk about travel restrictions. Are there any?
That's correct. That's an important element if you look at that first area of concern. So those holiday makers returning to their countries after spending some time abroad. The UK, for example, already announced quarantine requirements for people returning from places like France or the Netherlands. Germany, on the other hand, stated that it warned against non-essential travel to Spain. This is a very important issue here in this country and also in Spain, because there are many German tourists traveling every year to Spain, in particular to the Balearic Islands, and that's why this has seen as a very big decision in Germany, and also one that could have a very big impact economically in the tourism sector in Spain. Those are some of the key elements that have been decided, that every country or region on its high risk list, and that high risk list comprises about 130 countries and regions. When people return from one of those destinations, they must have a coronavirus test upon arrival, for example at an airport, and until they get a negative result they must also remain in quarantine. This is to try and reduce the number of those infections that are brought by people who have traveled abroad and are now returning to the country. So as you can see, many different countries taking specific decisions on this particular case, because there is, and I can clearly sense that, a sense of concern about the increase in the number of cases of coronavirus, not only here in Germany but in other parts of Europe as well.
Earlier, Thomas, there were demonstrations in part of Germany about the wearing of masks, for example. Tell us how citizens are reacting to the new restrictions.
There's also concern among citizens about this increase that I've been talking about. Authorities have been stressing on very also this week that it's very important for people to comply with the social distancing rules, to try and wear the mask when, for example, they're on public transport or when they go into shops. That's a requirement here, and authorities have warned that if people do not comply with those requirements, then they will have to pay fines. So there is a clear indication, and there's also some awareness that people have to play their part if those numbers are going to be reduced. Again, one of the concerns is not only people coming back from their holidays, but also what people are doing here in Germany, for example, celebrating, carrying out weddings or other parties, birthday parties. And this is seen as a particular risk when it comes to new infections and people having to go into quarantine. So that's why German authorities have been asking people to try and be as careful as possible, and many do seem to be taking that into consideration, although at the same time we also heard in recent weeks complaints by German officials that people were maybe becoming too complacent and that it was therefore of of too much importance, of very, very significant that people complied with the rules and people remained careful when it came to those social distancing rules and wearing the masks.
Thank you, Thomas. Stay safe. That's Thomas Sparrow. He is with DW, our partners. He's been joining us live from Germany. We've been talking about coronavirus in Germany and the country's reaction to the coup in Mali.